Hello and welcome. Nice to be at your place wherever you're watching us right around Australia. The Belgian Grand Prix. That's the one tonight. A great circuit, this one. And AJ, it's raining.
Yeah, I know. Well, that should be Michael Schumacher territory, but I think the Bridgestones are pretty good. I think they've got the wood on the good years in wet conditions, but of course Michael Schumacher makes up for that. So it always produces very exciting racing, very fast, beautiful circuit. All the drivers love it to race on. Plenty of overtaking spots. Should be a ripper.
Should be something else. All right, talk about a quick lap and a big practice crash for Villeneuve. Have a look at this. He was doing 290 kilometres an hour into the Eau Rouge. He rated his best ever crash. He was laughing about it. What about this?
Yeah, see, he's got a bit of understeer there and the car goes a bit light. He's jumped on the brakes. You can see the minute he realises that he's going to have the big one, he's on the brakes. That's what obviously left those big black marks. But he is a bit of a boy because he's jumped out of the car and said, well, I think that's the best one I've ever had. Yeah. And let me tell you, he had a real big one in Indy racing about 3 years ago, which I thought would have taken a bit of topping. So that must have been a monumental for him to jump out and say it's the best one.
He's a character, isn't he? He has a bit of a laugh and says that is the best one I've had. All right, let's have a look at this Spa track. As AJ said, all the drivers love it. This comes, of course, from Ubisoft Formula One simulation.
Well,
AJ?
That's the hairpin just after the start-finish line that's coming out of now. And we're going down towards Eau Rouge. This is where Villeneuve had his accident. You try and get down through here flat. It's very difficult. The car's got to be beautifully set up. Just about here, the car goes light, and that's where he lost it, and he speared off to the right-hand side. But, of course, to go through there flat is very important because this is probably the fastest part of the circuit, and you're in top for quite a while. And if you can get up through there flat and stick behind the guy in front of you, you can pull out and go under brakes for this right-left-hander. Now, that's a sensible type of chicane because it leads into a right angle, which does allow you enough time to pull out and go under brakes. You go down the hill now, all fairly quick, nice flowing corners. Down we go, into a left-hander. Plenty of, as I said before, plenty of spots to overtake. All the drivers simply love the circuit. It's a bit dicey weather-wise, though, because you can literally on this circuit, it's not as bad as the old original circuit, which used to be about, twice the length of this one. But it can literally be raining on one side of the circuit and virtually dry on the other. So that makes it a bit tricky, but just a beautiful circuit to drive on.
Well, it's one of the last of the great racetracks, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And even though this is a modified one, it's, as I said before, it's only half the distance of the original one. From here on in, you're virtually flat chat now. You're going up through the gears, gathering speed. Through all these sweepers, just absolutely flat. And you come up to probably, which is the worst corner of the lot, which is a little thing called the bus stop, which is this thing here. You're no sooner out of one little chicane, you're into the other, and you enter the pits on the right-hand side here, and this is where the start-finishing line is. You can see the grid positions in front of you, down into the first, possibly a first-gear hairpin.
Magnificent stuff. All right, let's get out of the simulator, put you back in a race car. Peter Nugent has all the qualifying highlights for us.
The McLaren team now has qualifying down to a fine art. World Championship leader Mika Häkkinen grabbing his 9th pole for the season. It's just what the Finn needed as he tries to stay ahead in the title race. Importantly for Häkkinen, his teammate David Coulthard is right beside him. Following the McLaren Quinella is Damon Hill, the 1996 world champion in the Jordan, continuing to improve. Fourth on the grid is Michael Schumacher. Spa is one of his favourite tracks, having won the Belgian Grand Prix 4 times. Eddie Irvine in the second Ferrari is 5th on the grid, but he had a memorable moment at the bus stop. Mika Salo could still manage a smile, or maybe it was a terrified grin, after he walked away from this frightening high-speed crash.
Well, as Murray Walker would say, spin, spin, spin. There you go, there's the grin, the two McLarens dominating yet again. Damon Hill, another great result from him, 4th in Hungary, 3rd here, really on the improvement trail. Michael Schumacher, 4th. His quickest lap was disallowed because they said he did under a yellow flag, but his next quickest lap would have only put him in 4th anyway, so he was no real better off. Eddie Irvine, his teammate, in 5th. Villeneuve, 6th. Fisichella, 7th. Ralf Schumacher in 8th. Frentzen, 9th. Alesi, 10th. Wirtz, 11th, down for him. Johnny Herbert, 12th. Trulli, Barrichello, Panis, Diniz, Verstappen, Mika Salo, 18th. Takagi, Rosette, Nakano and Turu, as usual, bringing up the rear.
Now, there's been a lot of points of interest that have come out of the Grand Prix world in the last couple of weeks or so. One of them, you won't believe this, I mean, we're talking about terrorists right around the world, a bomb threat. Now, a Belgian newspaper has received a letter stating that Bernie Ecclestone must donate 10 million Belgian francs, which is about 250,000 US dollars, to a Sudanese medical relief fund, but the night's race could be stopped by terrorists. The German media also reported that a separate threat was received in Brussels to damage Michael Schumacher's car, and both were taken very seriously, and extra security measures were taken at the track and also Ferrari, which incidentally is their 600th Grand Prix this time round. That's an amazing record. Now, as the end of the silly season could be in sight as early as the Italian Grand Prix, the fate of several drivers could be decided by then, including Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Alex Zanardi, Damon Hill and teammate Ralf Schumacher. Now, this is the bombshell. The young German and his current team have taken out injunctions against each other as Ralf tries to move to the Williams team and Jordan tries to keep him. That's come out of left field.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising because I was under the impression that he'd actually signed for Jordan at the British Grand Prix. And, you know, really, I mean, if the guy has signed to drive for Jordan, then that's what he's done. And what's happened now is taking out injunctions is all very well and good, but there's a lot of damage there in the relationship that, you know, if the court proves that he has to stay and so forth and so on, they're not going to have that happy relationship. That's gone.
There's some pictures coming in now. You can see the rain, the umbrellas are up and everything's very, very damp at the moment. So this is going to be a very exciting Grand Prix. And this terrorist thing, I mean, it is now out of control. I mean, obviously that's over the bombing. The Americans pulled off, last week, but I mean, it's just getting out of control, isn't it?
Well, there's not even an American car or driver in Grand Prix racing, so I don't know what all that's about, but I think irrespective of Formula One or anything, I think any sport shouldn't be held to ransom on a political issue like that. It's ridiculous.
Well, there he is, the boy that had the big one, Jacques Villeneuve. He's sitting and looking pretty relaxed as he wipes the Bowser. All right, now remember that we've got our competition going for that driving suit, the Mika Hakkinen driving suit. We've had a tremendous response to that, so keep those phone calls going. More about that later. We'll take a break, come back. This will be a beauty. Buckle up and get ready. Welcome back. As you can see, the car's crawling around on a very wet circuit. Just before we go over to the circuit, and AJ just make some points there, we will be having a Williams story tonight in the pits after the race, and that's also talking to Patrick Head. We'll also race and update the young Aussies right around the world. They're doing so well in Europe and particularly America too, so all of that after this race. But AJ, this one is going to be a screamer. I mean, Schumacher and a Ferrari in the wet, we know is very, very good. But, gee whiz, what a leveller.
Well, he's won here 4 times. In fact, he's won here 5 times and disallowed once because they said that the wooden plank under his Benetton was illegal or some such nonsense. But he loves the place. He only lives about an hour away. Michael Schumacher in a Ferrari in the wet is probably worth a second above anybody else.
Well, let's not, I mean, the McLarens have been absolutely sensational this year and they're both driving so well.
Well, absolutely, and the Bridgestones, I think, are a better tyre in the wet, there's no doubt about that, but, you know, weather conditions can change here. I mean, we've even got a bit of fog, you know, but they can. I mean, 5 or 10 laps into this race, you could see a dry line emerge very, very quickly. And to me, that makes it interesting then because you'll start to see unscheduled pit stops for tyres and so forth. So that brings a real interest into the race.
Big rap on Damon Hill, isn't it? I mean, that's been a tremendous effort.
Well, I think it's a rap on him and it's a rap on Jordan and Peugeot. I think they've finally started to get their act together. Probably a little bit too late for everyone's satisfaction, but it's great to see Damon up there in a car that's allowing him to be up the pointy end of the field. I
mentioned very briefly before, this is Ferrari's 600th Grand Prix. I mean, that's an amazing record, isn't it?
Sure is.
From day one, they've been there.
Yep.
Look at this, there's fog and mist and a lot of water coming off the tyres.
And it's a very fast circuit too. I mean, if you go off here, you go off big time. It's unlike Hungary or somewhere where there's a lot of 3rd and 4th gear corners. There's a lot of 5th and 6th gear corners at this place.
I mean, we talk about the mist and we talk about the rain. I mean, if you're back bar 1 and 2, I mean, it must be almost impossible in some parts of the circuit here to be seeing where you're going.
Oh, look, for the first couple of laps, it's just unbelievably dangerous. If you're midfield or midfield back, you literally cannot see where you're going. There is that much spray that sometimes you have to look out the side of your cockpit to see where you are on the circuit, you know, just to get some pointers. And the biggest problem with that, of course, is if someone spins or crashes, you don't see it, you can go straight into them. But it's also your braking marker, because when you all go screaming into the first corner, you get the concertina effect, and you're really not sure just how quickly the guy in front of you or how hard is braking. So it's very, very, you know, it's very easy to run up the back of somebody.
And there's absolutely nothing you can do, is there?
No, nothing. Just put some Rain-X or whatever they call it on your visor and hope that it...
Well, there you are. There's a good shot. Look at the water. Look at the bubbles coming off there. That's great stuff, isn't it? It just shows you what we're talking about. And modify that. All right, they're lining up, and of course this is an unusual grid here. 44 laps, a race distance, 306 kilometres. Let's take you over to Murray Walker and Martin Brundle.
As soon as possible. As ever, watch the lights, 5 on, and then they will all go out. A pause of up to 3 seconds, 44 laps, the Belgian Grand Prix, the race which is crucial to the World Championship. Häkkinen on the left, Coulthard on the right. Yes! Yes, it's go! And Coulthard drags. Häkkinen gets away well. Look at Eddie Irvine coming up on the inside. Villeneuve goes up into second position. Schumacher is down into about 6th position. Bad start by the Ferrari. Great start by Eddie Irvine. Villeneuve. Look at Villeneuve. And into the wall. Who was that?
Coulthard in the wall.
David Coulthard into the wall. Will stop the race.
They'll have to red flag
this. Terrible. Look, this is quite appalling. This is the worst start for a Grand Prix that I have ever seen in the whole of my life.
Total carnage. David Coulthard went off up the hill very early on, and then they just all piled into him in the poor visibility, and they have no ability to stop. The tyres are cold, and everything locks up, and he just absolutely slides straight into the accident.
Yeah, the race stopped, of course. Mika you saw walk away, and he had a gigantic crash yesterday. Well, it's going to take an enormous time to clear all this lot up. Drivers will be rushing back now to the pits, and that's Jos Verstappen down there. Barrichello, I apologise. While running back, there's Mika in the black overalls, and getting his steering wheel off there was Esteban Tuero. That's Takagi in the green helmet, and of course they're running back now to get into their spare cars, which won't necessarily have been set up. And if 2 cars in the same team have been damaged, it's quite conceivable that one of them won't be able to start.
Yes, I think they're trying to...
Eddie Irvine limping, you see, on the left. And the 2 cross drivers, that's Olivier Panis, and there's Barrichello.
Barrichello trying to say, look, I'm okay, I was holding my arm, but there's something red on the back of his overalls. Look, I don't know what that might be. I don't think it's blood, but there's something very much red on there. The two cross, both in the action, but Barrichello, they're saying, look, no, I'm fine, I want to get back and get into the spare car. But that is an incredible carnage. I think it started with David Coulthard getting on the power and losing the back end straight into the wall.
That's Coulthard's car.
But that was hit several times, Murray, after he hit the wall. Now watch it now, look, David Coulthard over on the your right of the picture, swings across and just lights up the rear wheels, had a big frontal impact into the wall anyway. And now the real action starts. David goes over to the other side, and then in the middle, somebody's braking. Eddie Irvine gets caught up in the Benetton, and they just keep smashing into each other. Look at Salo's car, his second big accident of the weekend, and then after that, total carnage. Nothing they can do. But Rosset just smashing into the back of a lot of them. Big accident.
Damon Hill got through all that lot all right. You see, there is Tuero in the background. The problem is, of course, when you're going at that speed on a slippery track and you've got no traction at all and a lot of power going through, there is absolutely nothing you can do about it.
The 2 cross drivers talking to each other as they're climbing up the hill. I'd be inclined to be the first one back to the pits and jump in one of them. I had this situation once at Brabham. You've got to get back and be the first one there. There's only one spare car. The
spare Prost is actually set up for Jarno Trulli, who started higher on the grid. He started from 13th place on the grid. And so Olivier Panis, who was 15th, probably won't have first claim.
And I doubt they'll give Irvine the spare Ferrari in case Michael Schumacher needs it on the next restart. So Irvine could well be out of this race.
as Jos Verstappen drives in. We saw him just missing a bit of debris, but you noticed the right rear tyre looked to me as though he got a puncture. Olivier Panis on the right, Jarno Trulli on the left. They're both perfectly all right, mercifully. But as I say, it's all hands to the pump now for the marshals and all the people who are responsible for operating the cranes of the heavy lifting equipment, who've got to get the cars clear. Johnny Herbert running back to get in the Sauber. Now, the Sauber team have got the car set up for a Lacey, the spare one. Rubens Barrichello and Ricardo Rossi talking the two Brazilians.
Yes, I do think that Barrichello is bleeding. He's cut something, but Eddie apparently not limping quite so heavily. I assume Ferrari have only one spare car here.
Look at it.
And I would be surprised, because we could have a replay of this in the next race, and then Michael Schumacher needs the spare car for the World Championship. So I'd be surprised if they let Irvine have that car.
Well, there's no doubt about the fact that his car won't be restarting. Very, very badly damaged on the left rear. Jackie Stewart talking to Rubens Barrichello, the senior of his two drivers, and Eddie Irvine on the right talks with Jean Todt, the Ferrari team boss. Now, what's Todt saying to Eddie Irvine? Is he saying, get in the spare car, Eddie, or is he saying, sorry, not for you? We've got to hold it for Michael. I'm not sure what the rule is on this. Can they actually stop him from taking part in the race if there's a car available for him?
I doubt there is a rule to cover that eventuality. I think that'll be a team situation.
Well, here we go again.
Damon Hill had a very poor start in third place.
Straight down towards us, you see Mika Häkkinen on in front, Eddie Irvine coming through, and Coulthard is behind Häkkinen. Eddie Irvine dives up to the right, and Villeneuve goes through on the left. Damon Hill and Ralf Schumacher turn round. Now, it's at this point that David Coulthard puts the power. Watch the McLaren in the background. There he goes across the track, into the wall, across the path of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Off go the wheels, into the Armco goes David. Damon Hill goes through. There's Eddie Irvine's Ferrari being hit by Mika Salo's arrows, which also hits David Coulthard's McLaren, which had already been virtually written off. Tuero just hit somebody's front wing. There's an arrows in front of us. I should think at least 10 cars have been really badly affected by that crash. It reminds me of the appalling crash at Indianapolis some years ago. But mercifully, no, Eddie looking very quiet and calm in the pits. Does that mean he's not starting, or that he's just getting himself together to restart?
Well, there are other cars at the end of the pit lane. Trulli's managed to get himself in the Prost. We can see Wirtz at the end of the pit lane, ready to rejoin. They should be allowed to go round and reform on the grid, because obviously the race was stopped before the end of the first complete lap. So it's a whole new race, and now we'll have to see. I didn't see any sign of Eddie Irvine preparing to get in the T car. Normally there'd be frantic activity, and well, there's so many. That car's
one of the Benettons.
I thought I saw some flames in the back of it. I thought I saw some flames coming out, just creeping out behind the bodywork there.
The point is that it's happened once. There's no reason, to be honest, why it shouldn't happen again. But James Allen's got some news for it. What is it, James?
Well, I'm down at the scene of the accident now. There are, as I count, 9 cars that have been damaged in this incident. We've got obviously arrows. We've seen a Prost. Both the Tyrrells seem to have been pretty badly smacked up. One of the Stewarts, one of the Benettons is there as well. But it's worth making the point that it seems that none of the drivers are still in the cars. They all seem to have got out and have made their way back to the pits via the medical centre, no doubt. And also we saw some bits flying off some of the cars up towards the debris fence, where there's a great big crowd, of course, on the outside of the straight. And looking across into the grandstands, it looks to me, well, I'm very glad to tell you this, that no one in the grandstands appears to have been hit by any flying debris.
Well, Ron Dennis there talking to David Coulthard. I won't say David caused it, but it certainly all happened after he went off the track. First of all to his right and then to his left. But he's zipping up his overalls again, getting ready to get into the spare McLaren.
That was a very big first impact there for David Coulthard. Obviously lit up the rear tyres, went straight across the road and head first into the wall. Just a pure concrete wall there. This is the other side of the track where he ended up. And then another car hit him. The Salo's car hit him very, very hard. One guy who did a good job in there was Ralf Schumacher. He managed to stay at the back of it all and hopefully he escaped completely undamaged.
Well, while we're getting things sorted out here in Belgium and they're clearing the track, it's a good time to take a break.
Well, welcome back. As you can see, live pictures coming our way. Hakkinen sitting there as calm as he could be. Well, AJ, you picked that like you knew that was going to happen.
Well, La Source, which is the hairpin immediately after the start, has a series of little rivers that run across the track there, and it's extremely treacherous. We can see a little bit of a river now in front of Hakkinen, who Damon Hill does a very ordinary start. Irvine does a ripper. And I'm surprised actually he got entangled in that, because he was a fair way up, but without any doubt it was basically Coulthard getting on the loud pedal way too early, and he was way over to the right of the track where you can see there's a lot of water. Now he's just going through a little puddle now, obviously aquaplanes, bang, into the wall, and that's when she all starts. But it just gives you an idea how quick these cars can accelerate, because they're not that far out of that corner, and look at the impact and the inertia of the cars. You know, it's absolutely. But one of the materials you'll see coming through here right at the moment, on the mid-screen, you'll see here he comes now, look, straight down, crash, straight through the lot of them.
I mean, we're talking millions of dollars of damage there.
And a few late night repairs too.
Yeah, and look at the track. I mean, now we'll have bits of fiberglass and carbon fibre and all sorts of things around that track. So that's going to be a big job for the marshals to clean that up.
Absolutely. This is where the marshals have really got to be on the ball and make sure that they sweep all those little bits of debris off the track, because, you know, that can cause a puncture or it can get flicked up into the car following behind. So this is where the marshals really come into their own, and thank God for them, because motorsport wouldn't be anywhere without them.
Exactly. All right, well, while all that's happening, of course, we'll update you as soon as we know. There were 9 cars involved. Just how many are out of the race, we'll update you in a moment. But we mentioned at the end of the race we were going to run our In the Pit segment. We'll do that now. Well, Alan Jones, of course, was at the British Grand Prix in very similar conditions to what we're seeing at Spa tonight. And whilst he was over there, he went back to his old factory, his old boss, Frank Williams, and also one of his best friends, of course, that's Patrick Head, and had a talk to them about the ins and outs of what's happened with Williams this year. So let's have a listen to what AJ put together as he went back to his homeland at the Williams factory.
Last year, when we caught up with Frank Williams and Patrick Head, they were well on their way to their second consecutive Drivers' and Constructors' World Championships. But what a difference 12 months can make. Along with the celebrations came headlines of a different kind. Controversy surrounded the departure of aerodynamicist Adrian Newey and the long-running court case over Ayrton Senna's fatal accident. Season 98 has seen the team struggle on the track for grid position and championship points. But while they are down, they are definitely not out. I caught up with the 2 team principals at their Oxfordshire factory earlier this year. This time last year, or about 11 months ago, we sat here in this very same museum and you had the court case in Italy pending. Now that that's all over and behind you, it must be a tremendous relief.
It was taking up a lot of time last year, and obviously having that sort of charge over one's head was not the easiest of situations. I'm not really totally satisfied with the way the end of the court case has been dealt with, in that the charge against us was dropped, but the judge has produced a rather vague report that basically says that he can't really draw any great conclusion from the evidence that was presented. I think that's rather a pity over the many hours and very, very large amount of money that was spent on the case, and I would like there to have been a clearer statement of a conclusion coming out of the case. But yes, I mean, it's obviously much better for us now it's behind us, and it's a very sad event that I hope we're never ever faced with again.
The court case had been going on for a number of years. It was concluded finally in, I think it was December. No, it was earlier than that, last year, but the result came out just before Christmas, which essentially exonerated the company and members of the company, and we were very grateful for it to happen, partly because it's our reputation, but also it was costing key people like Patrick and his engineers a lot of time. A lot of time.
Has Adrian Newey's departure from Williams Engineering left a big hole?
He's left a hole, and so far as his absence has missed, he's a very fine engineer, and clearly he was party to a great deal of our success in the 90s. However, Patrick had also had a policy of distributing work evenly, and we have presently a lot of younger engineers, highly qualified, very determined to prove they're better than anybody else in Grand Prix racing. And I know they will do that. We won the championship last year with a car essentially designed not by Adrian, with a car that was operated by another group of people, and we won it well. So we managed last year without Adrian. The fact that we're struggling this year in respect of last year does not directly relate to Adrian's absence. The difference he has made at McLaren I can't really comment on. I hate commenting about other teams as if I'm a know-all who knows too much about so much about racing. But Adrian is talented, and McLaren, I believe, needed someone like him, and I'm sure that a lot of what's going on at McLaren is because of Adrian's presence. He's a great contribution.
There hasn't been too many years where the Williams cars have been out of the top half a dozen. So far, the results this year must be fairly disappointing to you.
It's disappointing so far, but as you said, we've been there before. I think we know how to get out of these situations. I think we're currently fourth in the championship. It will be difficult to get back with Ferrari and McLaren in terms of number of points, but we need to beat Benetton, who are presently third. I can't say we will, but we're going for it.
We're a very competitive company, competitive people. We're not of the type to say we'll give up this season and get on, although I would say our position in the championship is gone now. We can still win races, and we're very keen to try and make sure that 98 isn't a season that goes by without a Williams win. But equally, we're building our knowledge and capability to make sure we're in good state for next year.
Adding to the challenge, 1999 could see the arrival of 2 new drivers. A series of disappointing results may see Heinz-Harald Frenzen's contract go without renewal, while Jacques Villeneuve has signed for British American Racing. At the team's launch in July, team manager Craig Pollock played his cards very close to his chest.
Can you tell me who's on your shortlist?
Alan Jones.
Oh, his bum wouldn't fit in the car at the moment.
You got a lot of work to do. No, on the shortlist we've got a shortlist of drivers from North America, from the Formula One side. We have to put into the shortlist, obviously, the Zanardis, the Villeneuves. You've got to go into the Hills, whosoever is available at the moment.
Few, however, were surprised when the deal was finally announced several weeks later. As at the Hungarian Grand Prix, Williams has no contracted drivers for next year, though Alex Zanardi has come closest, signing a letter of intent. Yet, despite the uncertainty, the team are keeping things very much in perspective.
There are a lot of people here, and they're all almost to a man here because they love motor racing, so as long as they're participating, they're very dedicated and therefore very motivated. They don't need much pushing at all.
Well, I think the big thing is to always have expectation that that things are going to get better. Morale tends to drop if things are bad and either not getting better or progressively getting worse, and such is the nature of motor racing, that unless you're actually progressing, you're going backwards because other teams are progressing. And it's amazing how much teams have progressed this year and how much it is beginning to close up at the front, from which was a situation at the beginning of the year where McLaren's were a long way ahead, and first of all Ferrari closed up to them, and then other teams, including ourselves, are beginning to close up. And so as long as there's expectations for better things in the future, morale is good, and it's not something generally we have too much of a problem with here.
You don't go to your new engine supplier until the year 2000, and I'm sure that's going to be an unbelievably successful relationship. Are you confident that the present engine suppliers are going to be able to keep up with development and give you the power that you need?
Well, certainly on the engine we have this year, it's currently pretty much to the same specification, same capability as it had as it finished in 1997. It's not really for want of trying on the development program on the engine, but basically the fundamental architecture of this engine has proved itself to not be able to be extended onwards, and they need to make some fairly major changes to do that, and those changes are going to be incorporated in next year's engine. Undoubtedly, the engine program is not being subjected to quite the level of intensity of development that it received when it was fully supported by Renault, and I think it would be fanciful to think that it can stay right at the forefront of engines, and it may well be that maybe the McLaren and Ferrari engines, one or two others, might be a little bit more powerful, but when you're talking about engines in the 700 to 800 horsepower range, the odd 20 horsepower can be quite easily covered if you can come up with a car that's slightly better. So we have what we have on the engine side. I know that next year the engine will be significantly better than it is this year, and that's the best we have for 1999. And we certainly have the attitude that providing we can come up with a good enough car, we still think we can win in 1999.
No one's ever confident of development, even if you're McLaren today. With the Mercedes engine, they can't be confident that in 6 months' time they still may be the equal or if not better than anybody else. You just hope that your manufacturer, your partner, can get the job done. With Mecachrome we have the major advantage of an immensely reliable engine, which is also very competitive, and I believe that will continue to be so, and of course I sincerely hope it will be so, in 1999.
We've just read in the papers a couple of days ago that Gerhard Berg has been made racing director or motorsport director for BMW. That should add a little bit of humour to the program, if nothing else.
Certainly, I know that I've known Gerhard not very well, but known him for at least 10 years, and his sense of humour is the biggest thing that stands out, although I'm not sure of the humour level that I would achieve if somebody dropped my briefcase out of a helicopter from 300 feet, which is what I gather he did to Ayrton Senna one time. But no, it should be good fun, and some aspects of motor racing have to be fun.
He will provide something for BMW, there's no question about that, because BMW don't pretend that they know all there is to know today about Grand Prix racing. They need someone to advise and direct their Formula One efforts on their side, and Gerhard, I believe, is as good a candidate as they could come up with. He is very knowledgeable, as a driver at least, about Formula One.
Speaking of new additions, Patrick and his wife Bea recently welcomed young Luke into the family. Are we going to see a carbon fibre head design pram?
I did actually say to my wife when she was pregnant that I was going to be designing some ace carbon fibre pram and stuff, and talk is cheap, they say, isn't it? And I didn't actually end up achieving it, and I went out like everybody else selecting prams in a shop. I must say it's an amazing thing to happen at somebody at my time of life, but I think it'll probably keep me on my toes, and I suppose basically you're going to be told you're a silly old fool by your 15-year-old teenage son sometimes, so it doesn't really matter whether you're older or younger when that happens. So, but it's an amazing experience, and I'm very pleased that it's happened.
What a nice man. And he would have the fastest pram on the block, no doubt.
The thing with Patrick, he always gives you a fair dinkum. Like, he doesn't, you know, he really just tells it the way he feels it when he's great. But apparently got caught with the pram in one of the parks in London a couple of weeks ago, and he was highly embarrassed. He's a top bloke.
The briefcase at 300 would get your attention, wouldn't it?
Oh, but he used to glue people's wallets together, and you know, it was a shocking thing.
All right, well, the carnage is still being cleaned up, although cars are coming back onto the circuit. So it shouldn't be too much longer before we go to a start. But we mentioned that competition that we've been running, and of course this is for the driving suit from Mika Häkkinen, and it's a wonderful, wonderful prize. So we'll bring you up to date of how you can enter the big competition to win that driving suit. Loctite Australia and Wide World of Sports are giving you the chance to win the Formula One prize of a lifetime. A replica McLaren race suit signed by World Championship contender Mika Häkkinen. This magnificent collector's item comes fully framed with a certificate of authenticity and will be delivered to the winner courtesy of Loctite. Proud sponsors and technical partners of the McLaren racing team since 1995 and adhesive and sealant suppliers to all Formula One teams. To enter, call 1902 553 614 and leave your name, address and telephone number. The competition lines are open 24 hours a day until midnight September 26th. And the winner will be announced during the telecast of the European Formula One Grand Prix on September 27. Just call 1902 553 614 to enter. You can call as many times as you like, thanks to Loctite Australia and Wide World of Sports.
So you can win a replica race overalls signed by me. So have a nice time.
And thanks to Loctite people. I mean, that is a great prize, isn't it? I mean, a unique prize.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a beauty.
And we've had a stack of entries so far. And of course, you can enter as many, many times as you like. So don't be frightened to get on that phone and have a go. Right, here's Bernie Eccleston now coming down pit lane in the traditional white shirt and the dark trousers.
He's looking more to the left and right.
Well, as you can see, it looks like
terrorists.
It looks like it stopped raining for a moment, but yeah, there's the clean-up going on. Now, that's what we talked about, getting all those little tiny pieces of carbon fibre off the circuit.
Yeah, well, that's a great idea. They've got those high-pressure hoses. I mean, I obviously expected to see a lot of them out there with brooms and brushes, but that's a lot better. That's going to get the job done a lot quicker too. But it looks like we haven't had any more rain since the start, so we could get a sort of a wet-dry situation. But as I said before, if you have a look on the circuit, you'll see lots of little streams that run across the track, and they're extremely dangerous because you know, they can cause aquaplaning very, very easily.
All right, well, the cars the spare cars are out in the circuit. They've come around. They're forming up on the grid. We'll come back. We'll take a break now. Come back, and we'll update you just who's starting, who's out, the whole shebang. Welcome back. Well, as you can see, Michael Schumacher sits in the Ferrari and he looks calm and collected. There's been a lot of tyre changing going on. You see the covers coming off the cars now, so we're not that far away. Now, not restarting, Barrichello, Panis, Salo and Rosset. There were no spare cars there, so we really haven't lost too much of the field considering.
Well, that's right, and with all due respect, the ones we have lost aren't exactly front runners that would be up there giving us the entertainment. You can see now they've all gone to intermediate tyres. It hasn't rained since the start of, well, the original start. They've done one observation lap to go around back to the grid, and then having done so, most of them have opted to go on to intermediates.
So they're onto a formation lap shortly. But David Coulthard, I mean, I was just interested while we're off air, you were saying that that'd be out of his mind now, that crash. He'd be just thinking about a restart. This is a brand new race.
Oh, absolutely. That's history. You know, you saw them all running back to jump into their spare cars. I mean, the first thing that goes through your mind is, I've now got to go back and get into a fit car so I can have another go. And you're thankful that you can have another go, because that's uppermost in your mind, getting your bum back in the car and doing a Grand Prix. So these guys right now would be thinking about the start that they're about to have and not the one that they had.
Irvine had to make some adjustments because the spare car Ferrari was set up for Schumacher.
Yeah, they're very similar, apparently. They don't really have to change much at all for these two drivers. And they both like the car set up pretty much the same as well, so that's handy for them. Still quite a bit of mist, still quite a bit of water laying around, but nowhere near what we had before. And if it doesn't rain, we will see a dry line, you know, emerging, I would say, within about 6 or 7 laps.
So Damon Hill made a pretty poor start considering of his grid position.
He made a shocker. You know, he qualified extremely well in Hungary, 4th. A little bit disappointing in the race. He's qualified one better here in 3rd, so I really, for his sake, I'd like to see him have a better race result.
Disappointed would be Jacques Villeneuve, who did make a good start.
Yeah, he did a blinder. He really did. If he can do another one like that, that'd be good stuff.
Coulthard, you still say it was just one of those little rivers, a puddle on the road?
Yeah, I mean, it was his fault, but when I say it was his fault, I'm not pointing the finger accusingly as such, but you know, he's come out of Eau Rouge and he's, not Eau Rouge, La Source, and he's got onto the accelerator a little bit too quickly. He's way out wide where there was a lot more water, and it's gotten away from him, as simple as that.
Well, you could just see the water coming then off the car. That was amazing. I mean, they've gone down that little dip and there's obviously a lot of water still in there, and the spray coming back, we talked about how hard it is to see. I mean, you're almost running blind then.
Yeah, well, of course, these conditions are fabulous compared to what they were a little bit earlier on, but yeah, there are, as I said before, there are quite a few parts of this track where the water runs across, and that's what makes it really dicey when you do get a dry line and decide to go onto slicks, because there's still those little parts around the circuit that can catch you.
Now, Bridgestone, they've got 3 different compounds, and they've also got 2 different tyre widths for the front.
Yeah. Well, this is where they caught Goodyear out a little bit at the beginning of this year. They actually introduced a wider front, and it worked extremely well on these modern Formula One cars, and that's what Goodyear have introduced several races ago, and that's why, well, part of the reason we've seen Goodyear, you know, bring the fight back up to them. They've really responded very well.
The word we have from Spa tonight is that both the McLarens have gone to the narrower of those widths on the fronts.
Yeah, well, it's a very fast circuit, and of course, being wet conditions, you want a thinner tyre anyway because it's less width to aquaplane.
They've also been fiddling with the wings. I noticed that McLaren were fiddling with their wing.
Well, they're probably taking a bit of downforce off because now that it's drying, they can use the suspension a little bit more rather than aerodynamics. When it's raining, you want as much downforce as you can, obviously. Now that it's dried up a little bit, they've taken a bit more downforce off to get a more straight line speed.
Alrighty, well, that's our comments from our former champ, of course, Alan Jones. So the race distance, 44 laps. We've got 306 kilometres in the rain. Let's go back to Murray Walker and Martin Brundle.
Just crossed, everybody. We don't want another bad start like that one. 18 cars on the grid. There's Damon Hill. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. Go, 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 go! Hakkinen leads away again. Irvine again comes up the left. Damon Hill has made an excellent start and leads! And leads! Damon Hill gets ahead of everybody at La Source. Schumacher going round the outside.
Oh, and Hakkinen is
and spinning Hakkinen. Schumacher hit Hakkinen. And Herbert has hit Hakkinen. Now, I can't believe they're not going to have to stop the race again.
They've got 3 minutes to get that out of the way, and there's no spare car for Hakkinen. He'll have to take, even if they do stop it, he'll have to take, he's saying he's okay, but he'll have to take Coulthard's car back in that respect. But at the moment, no sign of the red flags as Michael Schumacher comes up the inside of Eddie Irvine.
And takes 2nd place. So now the battle is on between Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher, but is the race going to be stopped? There is no indication of it on our monitors, and we normally get a very quick indication. Mika Hakkinen walks away. That's the World Championship leader. He's not going to... And now goes Coulthard. Coulthard is off, and one of the Benettons. This is terrible for the McLaren team. David Coulthard has kept the engine running, and Schumacher is up with Damon Hill. The Ferraris are 2nd and 3rd, and Damon leads a race for the first time since Hungary last year in the Arrows.
What's absolutely clear to me is that the Bridgestone intermediates are not working at all well. There you see Coulthard and one of the Benettons, both on the Bridgestone Inters, off the road. But at the moment, both Hill and Schumacher's car appearing to work well, Michael looking the faster.
And remember the way these two are old rivals.
Safety car's on the track.
The safety car is on the track. They're going to have to line up behind the safety car. That is a good decision, in my opinion. There is the safety car. There will be yellow flags round the course to warn the drivers to slow down. Mika Häkkinen disconsolately moves and ironically it was his World Championship rival Michael Schumacher who hit him and took him out of the race. And now David Coulthard is back again on the track. David Coulthard has rejoined the race.
Recovered from that gravel trap. You saw him reversing gently out. Safety car's good news for him. It's a bit like Austria. He's going to end up at the back of the field. But Häkkinen gets away very, very well, it appears. But Hill made a super start. Coulthard a poor start. And Hill goes down the outside, squeezes Häkkinen and brakes later. Häkkinen very, very cautious there. Now Mika feels a bit under pressure, very close to that Ferrari, hits the throttle a little bit too hard, pirouettes, only to be clouted by the Sauber of Johnny Herbert. And they'll both be out of the race, I think, with that one, but for sure Häkkinen is out of the race because the safety car means they'll just clear it away and restart. Here we go
now
again.
Watch Schumacher here and watch the way he contacts Häkkinen. There's going to be a lot of discussion about this. Some people are going to accuse him.
I don't think they contact Murray. I don't actually think
they did.
Let's have a look.
It's coming out of La Source. You see there. Oh, come on. Well, now they're removing. Oh, well done, well done, well done. They've got the car out of the way. Thank heavens the race isn't being stopped. Here's Wurz and Coulthard going off. We know that Coulthard has rejoined. I don't know whether Alexander Wurz did, because are they going to stay with us and see whether he goes into the wall? No, he's out of the race. Alexander Wurz is out of the race. Well, that means we're down to 17 before the end of the first lap. 18 out of 22 started. The safety car is out. Now, we've been through this situation before. Was that... The situation is that the safety car has got a row of lights on its roof. You see them flashing. When those lights are turned out, the safety car comes into the pit lane and the race restarts. And the order, Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, Eddie Irvine, John Lacey is in 4th position. 5th is Jacques Villeneuve, followed by Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So the Williams are 5th and 6th. Ralf Schumacher is 7th and Fisichella is in 8th position. Alexander Wurz stopped. Häkkinen is out of the race. Johnny Herbert has stopped as well. And as I've already told you, we've got 4 non-starters. I've said this so many times in the past. Anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does, and it's happened again. Safety car. Look at that yellow Jordan. I'm just trying to remember. So how many times, if ever, a Jordan has been right up at the front of a race?
Didn't Fisichella lead at Hockenheim?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. That was the last time. I have a feeling there was somewhere else. But it's a rare occurrence. But the difference this time is that it's driven by a world champion, the world champion of 1994, Damon Hill, who has been longing and yearning and looking for an opportunity like this, to lead in a car that's worthy of his talent, of which he has so much. Well, the Jordan team have been working hard on that car, joined by Mike Gascoigne, and they got it right.
Look at Lacey up there in 4th place, Murray. He made a storming getaway, didn't he?
Yeah, he does. He loves the wet, Jean Lacey. And the Sauber, which has got a power disadvantage, won't suffer as much as it would have done if it had been dry. So, into the bus stop at the end of the lap.
I'm just looking at a replay on a diamond screen outside the commentary box.
And the race is on, the race is on. There's the safety car. Damon Hill leads on lap 3 out of 44. Can Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari catch his old rival and get past him? Not if Damon Hill's got anything to do with it. The revived, much improved Jordan has also got a much improved Mugen Honda Japanese engine in it. And it's giving a lot of extra power. Damon's the man to use it there. Ferrari are 2nd and 3rd. And David Coulthard is the fastest man on the track in 15th place. He's catching Esteban Tuero, who is ahead of him. It won't take him long to get past. There's Villeneuve in 5th position. Look for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. It's not Frentzen, it's Lacey. So Villeneuve has got ahead of Jean Lacey. We didn't see it happen. It means that Jacques Villeneuve in the, again, much improved Williams with the Mechachrome engine is now in 4th position. Race order, Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, there they are. Eddie Irvine, there he is. Jacques Villeneuve is 4th, Lacey is 5th, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 6th position, and Schumacher now knows if he can just keep going, he'll get 6 points if he stays where he is. He knows that Mika Häkkinen has got no points because he will have seen him go off. And Michael Schumacher, as ever, is getting down to it. But it looked to me, we didn't actually see the replay to get the final judgment on